It is now. I didn't feel the need to
No, that's fine.
redo. Yeah, we had problems today.
Watch this, seven, we good? Come on, Tim.
Yeah. I'm
No,
good.
good.
Literally read between the lines.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 20th meeting of the East Hempfield Township Board of Supervisors. Tonight's meeting has been advertised to be held in person and online using Zoom with login and call-in information posted on our website. The meeting will be conducted by the chairman, who will be assisted by an employee managing the Zoom site. Tonight's video and audio is being recorded and Robert's rules apply. To offer comment, you must be recognized by the chairman. For people utilizing Zoom, please use the chat function to be recognized. Text your name and address to the moderator. Your request to speak will then be passed on by staff to the chairman to be recognized. Once recognized by the chairman, unmute your microphone, and after speaking, please mute your microphone. East Hempfield Township's public comment rules will apply. You must be a resident or business owner in the township to speak. You must identify yourself by name and address before speaking and sign the guest log for meeting minute purposes, or follow the chat procedure already discussed for Zoom attendance. Comment is limited to 3 minutes and must be about the agenda item being discussed, with the exception of public comment when non-agenda items can be addressed. No action will be taken on any non-agenda item of a non-emergency nature during the public comment period for non-agenda items. We will now move on to our first agenda item. Please join me for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, our first agenda item up for consideration this evening is our consent agenda. The consent agenda addresses the approval of routine and repetitive business matters that tend to need little or no review, discussion, or deliberation. Consent agenda items are provided to all board members for review in advance of our meeting. And I would ask the board if anyone has any comment on the consent agenda.
Only that I'll be abstaining from item D because of the Bowman invoices.
Okay. Any comment from the audience? All right. Seeing none. Let's start with a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through C as presented. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second? Second from the chair. Motion from Mr. Russell, a second from the chair. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, motion to approve item D, invoices as presented. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth, a second from Mr. Brubaker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Motion passes 4-0. Motion, okay, next, motion to approve item E, the minutes of the March 6th meeting as presented. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Johnson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We'll give it to Mr. Brubaker. I have a motion from Mr. Johnson and a second from
Wait a
Mr.
minute.
Brubaker. Who was that?
That was me, and I think,
Scott.
do you have
And
to abstain on?
I
that?
was not there.
You weren't there.
Abstaining on that.
All right. So we'll reel that back in and give it to Mr. Russell. So I have a motion from Mr. Johnson and a second from Mr. Russell. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Was that
And
unanimous?
actually backing up a minute. On the March 6th, I was
You were
not in the room.
correct. You were on Zoom, but I believe you said you were not participating.
I was not participating.
So it would be a 3-0-2 with 2 abstentions, if that's the way you want to do it.
Okay, let's get that right. I'll participate next time. Okay. That moves us on to action items. And first up, we have a HWGA Realty and Bell Telephone Company action item. Mrs. Switzer.
You're up. Steve. It's Steve.
Well,
Okay. Good evening, Steve Gergley with Harbor Engineering. This is a lot add-on plan for two properties. The first property is 1170 Enterprise Court. It's owned by Bell Telephone Company. It's operated by Verizon. It's an office and a shop for them. And a property to the south, it's on the north side of Commercial Avenue. It doesn't have an address, but it has an existing barn, and it's been used for vehicle storage by Lancaster County Motors for several years. And that's owned by HWGA Realty.
I'm getting there.
Perfect.
Yep, just give me a second.
And just to give you a little bit of background, this is just a lot add-on plan to transfer about 4/10 of an acre from the Bell Telephone property to the HWGA property to the south, as shown on the plan. And the reason for this is, they had an opportunity, HWGA, to purchase some of the property from Verizon. It was a bit of a surprise when they kind of looked at the survey. There's a fence at the backside of Verizon. The lawn is mowed up to that fence. I think it's probably been maintained by HWGA for many years. And in the future, they would like to develop a land development plan for a auto service center on the Commercial Avenue property. So he's in the process of just trying to obtain more land to give himself more land for impervious coverage, for additional vehicle storage, landscape buffers, et cetera. So that's the purpose of this plan. We'll be coming in later with a land development plan for the Commercial Avenue property to the south.
okay.
This plan, no improvements are proposed. We are asking for a couple of modifications, pretty standard for a lot add-on plan. We're asking for a waiver of plan scale to show the plan on 1 inch equals 60 feet to show everything on one page. Surveyed existing features within 200 feet of the tract. Reports, because we're not proposing anything, so no need for stormwater, steep slope, wetland reports, et cetera. We're asking for the standard deferral of curb, sidewalk, and roadway improvements along both the small piece of Enterprise Court and Commercial Avenue, with subject to the deferral agreements. And we're asking for a modification to reduce the buffer planting width required for the Verizon property. Your ordinance requires in the Enterprise zoning district between these two similar uses, 20-foot landscape buffers. We're proposing to do the lot add-on piece to exactly 10 feet from where the fence is on the Bell Telephone Verizon property. That property is not going to be developed, so the only time that the landscape buffer would be triggered is if it were going to be developed, but it's extremely unlikely. This basically maxes them out with impervious coverage and so forth. So we feel that's a reasonable request to make. And if and when we do the land development plan for the property to the south, they will be subject to the 20-foot landscape buffer, and that'll take care of the buffer between the two properties, all of which are recommended for approval by your planning commission and by DMA.
Everything's good with this, Mrs. Switzer?
Yes.
That's fairly simple, right? Any questions from the board?
None.
Any questions from the audience? Okay. Seeing none, I hear a motion to approve the HWGA Realty Bell Telephone Company 24-01-01 modifications lot add-on. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to approve modification waiver request number 1, 2, and 6, and conditionally approve number 3 and number 4, and to grant a modification of number 5 for the HWGA Realty and Bell Telephone Company lot add-on plan, subject to all staff and engineering comments. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Brubaker. Motion from Mr. Russell, second from Mr. Brubaker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Then to follow up on that, a motion to approve the lot add-on plan for HWGA Realty and Bell Telephone Company project, township file number 24-01-01, subject to all staff and engineering comments. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Johnson. Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth, a second from Mr. Johnson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Long motion for a little bit of work, but there,
I'll just stay up here. I'm on the next.
your next, beautiful. Okay. Next up, 1185 Enterprise Captive Air Sketch Plan.
Right, so 1185 Enterprise Road, it's Captive Air. It's a nationwide company. What they do is they do like commercial air vents for commercial kitchens and things like that and rooftop units. And this is their R&D facility. It's about 20,000 square feet. The property is about 3.2 acres. This plan was prepared by Stocks Engineering. They are out of Nashville, North Carolina. And the way it works is they follow Captive Air. They have facilities all throughout the country. So they're a primary civil engineer. And what they do in instances like this is they partner with local engineering firms to help kind of navigate the process, provide representation at the meeting to try to provide some efficiency with dealing with your local ordinances and boards. So I'm here on behalf of Captive Air and Stocks Engineering for this plan. And the plan itself is to do an office expansion at the northwest corner of about 5,000 square feet shown on the plan. And in addition, an expansion of the parking facility to accommodate additional employees and visitors. So it's a relatively simple plan, no changes to the access drives or the operation, just basically an enlargement of both the parking and the building. This has also been presented to the Planning Commission and to DMA. They're recommending approval of the waiver of preliminary plan, which is what we're asking for at this time. And then the next step would be the preliminary plan.
Okay, great. Good to see an expanding business in the township. Any questions from the board?
Oh, we need to abstain on this.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from the audience on this project? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the preliminary plan waiver request for 1185 Enterprise Captive Air Project, subject to all staff and engineering comments. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Johnson. Do I hear a second?
Second. Oh, sorry.
I hear a second from Mr. Wigglesworth. Motion from Mr. Johnson, a second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay,
Technically 401.
401. Thank you. Learn something new every day. Okay, next up. K9 Lancaster LLC, Mrs. Schweitzer.
So K9 Lancaster LLC has submitted a petition to amend the zoning ordinance to permit boarding kennels in the CBC zone by right, subject to additional criteria. What we're looking for tonight is simply an acceptance acknowledgement of the application so that we can submit it to the planning commissions, the county and local, get their reviews, and then schedule it for advertise it for schedule for a meeting for the Board of Supervisors to consider.
So we're just accepting the plan.
If you're just accepting, there's no discussion
No discussion.
unless you, yes.
Unless we. Okay, any questions from the board?
Has staff looked at how this is going to affect the entire,
Yes, yes.
okay, and I guess they're good with it? Or do they have issues or?
It probably wouldn't be appropriate to comment, but
Okay.
staff is looking at it. And
Okay.
we will have a full report for you when it comes before you officially.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. I hear a motion to acknowledge the application and authorize staff to submit to the Lancaster County Planning and East Hempfield Planning Commissions for review and when appropriate to advertise a hearing for consideration.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Johnson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wigglesworth. Motion from Mr. Johnson, second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, Oak Tree Development Group. Someone here from Oak Tree tonight?
Not sure.
Doesn't,
Okay, that's fine. So Oak Tree Development Group has presented to us a planning consistency and support letter for funding that they are attempting to get for the completion of the Brookside development, which is on the east side of State Road.
great development so far. We want to keep it moving. I don't have any questions here. This is just, we're just looking for a letter
Correct.
to submit to the state for grant purposes.
that it supports our
primarily.
planning methods and
Primarily.
we support the project.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
None.
None.
None. Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, I'll have a motion to authorize staff to sign the planning consistency and support letter for Oak Tree Development Group in connection with the continued improvements to the Brookside Development Project. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Brubaker. Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth, a second from Mr. Brubaker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. 283 Commerce Hub.
283 Commerce Hub is a warehouse project on South Chickies Road and the corner of Spooky Nook. They have agreed to do some off-site improvements at the intersection of Spooky Nook Road and Route 283 to improve the intersections and also add signals. To get that accomplished and to provide the township with some assurances that there will be no cost to the township, we have the agreements for the traffic improvement agreement and the HOP indemnification agreement. These have been gone through by our attorney, our traffic engineer. Have been numerous drafts. They are signed and ready to go by the developer if the board decides to move forward with it.
Any questions from the board?
None.
Hearing none, any questions from the audience? Okay. All right, with that, I'll hear a motion to accept the traffic improvement agreement and the highway occupancy permit indemnity agreement, which relate to the off-site improvements being proposed by the developer of 283 Commerce Hub at the Route 283 interchange. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second? Second from the chair. Motion from Mr. Russell, second from the chair. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. F, looks like 2024 paving bids. Mrs. Switzer or Perry?
So Mr. Madonna did move forward and got the bids out early in the spring. We have the quotes before you. The low bidder for the pavement in place is New Enterprise Stone and Lime at a total cost of $982,477.07. In addition to that, we have pickup materials from Highway Materials out of Floortown for $71,560. And you have the list of proposed paving that is being suggested. The budget number for this project was 1.1 million, so we are under budget.
120 grand. Awesome.
On the plus side.
Yes.
That's good.
We're getting there. Okay. Any questions from the board?
Is that the paving charges for the whole year? Is that what that's describing?
We do paving once a year and we do all the roads that at the same time or right in line with each other.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Okay. All right, hearing none, I'll accept a motion to accept the low bid for in-place paving from New Enterprise Stone and Lime in Ephrata with a bid of $982,477.07. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Brubaker. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Johnson. Motion from Mr. Brubaker, a second from Mr. Johnson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And then we have a motion to accept the lowest bid for materials to be picked up from Highway Materials in Flowertown with a bid of $71,560. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So
Motion,
moved.
motion from Mr. Russell,
Second.
second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Old business. Do we have any old business tonight? Okay. Any new business tonight? We have a PSATS resolution and nominations to be considered at the annual PSATS conference in April. I had a very brief discussion tonight with Mr. Johnson, who's will be our representative there. reviewed my thoughts with the different resolutions that are up for consideration. And at this point, would ask that if you already haven't done it, you get those recommendations to Mr. Johnson so he can review them prior to voting at the PSATS convention. Any comment?
No, just for the record, I agree with the support and oppose that's on every one of
Yeah,
these.
I pretty much did also. But just make sure you connect with Mr. Johnson on this.
Good.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the audience?
I actually want to bring something up under new business.
Oh, sure. New business?
Yes, sadly, I do have some new business I'd like to talk about. I'm sure everyone is aware of the controversy surrounding the drag queen story hour at Lancaster Library. And I'm sorry to have to bring this up here tonight. There are very few things that bring us together as a community and as a nation these days, and it appears there is one less at this time. For years, our board has supported Lancaster County Public Library System with modest donations, was never contentious. The question was not, are we going to support the library, but rather, how much were we going to give? How much did we have and were we able to give? The library is indeed an independent organization, and they do not need our permission or our blessing in how they run their operation. However, the Drag Queen Story Hour is a radical change in direction on the library's behalf. And you simply cannot head down this path and enter into the political arena and still expect to receive taxpayer dollars. I know there's some who are going to say it's not a big deal, and I don't have a problem with it. And I have something for you to think about. If this were a group such as the NRA that wanted to host Story Hour at the library to emphasize the importance of responsible gun ownership, would that be okay if your tax dollars were being spent for that? What would you say if a Christian group wanted to host Story Hour to emphasize the biblical perspective on marriage and family? My guess is that you would not be okay with those two items. My guess is that the leadership at the library would not be okay with it either. The core mission of promoting literacy, providing resources and materials that support learning, providing facilities that are suitable for students and residents to study and read. These are things that bring everybody together. These are things that we can all support. We can all unite around that core mission. Again, hosting the Drag Queen Story Hour is a drastic change. It is divisive. It sends a clear message that we're moving into the political arena. And it is my view, if the library goes through with this event, and I believe they will this Saturday, that we're left with no choice but to remove our tax dollars and donate it to some other use. And so it's going to be my request that we put on the agenda for our next meeting this item to discuss. And I would love to hear from the rest of the board on this.
Yeah, well, I have differing opinions. I would support continuing to fund the library. I'm open to them having programs that they see fit to have. I think there's interest in this type of program from people in the community. So I would vote to continue to support the library.
So just to be clear, we're not voting now, and it's not
Right.
appropriate to vote now, but I would like to have it on the agenda to vote on at a
Yep.
future meeting.
Yeah, understood. I probably used the wrong terminology there, but I do want to express my support for the library and express my opinion that boards like us should not be telling the library what types of programs to select. You know, I'm sure they don't look at it the same way you do, Scott, and I would both support a Christian-based program as well as NRA. You know, there's people in the community interested in that, so I would support all three of those things that you said, and I would be interested in continue to support the library. I think they do a lot of good things.
And they do. The library does do a lot of good things. And when they come here and ask for funding, they highlight all those good things. They don't highlight this type of activity, however, and that's the issue. It's not, we're really not, the only thing that we're saying here is that we are the stewards of our tax dollars that people in the township provide us. And they must go, those tax dollars need to be used for something better than this. And that's really what we're saying. This has nothing to do with gender or any of the controversial items that we hear about on TV every week. This just has to do with appropriately committing and spending resident funding in a responsible manner. And that's why I will support putting this on the agenda for the next meeting.
So just to clarify one thing, we're talking about the City of Lancaster Library, not the Lancaster Library System. Each Lancaster Library System is a host of multiple libraries. It's Adamstown, it's Mount Joy, it's Manheim Township, it's Manheim Borough. They make up the system, but each one of those are independently run. They each have their own independent board. And the City of Lancaster has two libraries. It has the main campus library, it's in the city, and then it has what they call Lancaster City West Library, which is Mountville. And historically, we have supported the Lancaster City Library because of the Mountville branch of the Lancaster City Library. We do not have a library within our own township. We actually have three libraries that are all about the same distance from one another in the center of mass of this township. We have the Mountville Library, the Mount Joy Library, and the Manheim Community Library. They're all about the same distance to where we're at right now, and it's sitting right now. My belief, what we have done in this township over the years is we've been very careful to stay above politics, not to get drug into Republican or Democrat issues, but just focus on trying to provide good local government. And that's my expectation of entities that we support too, is to stay apolitical, stay above these social and state and federal issues that are poison for our communities, and really just focus on what is in their wheelhouse, the things that they need to serve and the community that they're serving. And when an entity starts taking a political position like the city library has, I feel that that's a line that's being crossed at this point. It's no longer something that, when you are posting an event that's going to have protest groups and counter protest groups out there, and if you start striving away from your main focus, which is literacy and things like that, I think you're not serving the overall community good like you should be. So I am disappointed that this has occurred, that they're going down the road like this and creating something that's divisive. That's something that's very political at this point. Something that drives from their core mission and that they're here to serve with. And I will be in favor of this being added to the agenda for further discussion. I do think there are options for libraries because, like I said, there were 3 libraries, all equal distance from this location right now.
I guess I would just add, my feeling would be that just as the library would have a choice to put on whatever program they so choose, I believe it's our choice as a township to collectively discuss and determine how best to spend our taxpayer money. And I think in my case, I don't believe this is a good choice direction to spend taxpayer money. I think it's a very poor choice, and I don't. Yeah, again, I think it's divisive. It's just it's reflective of a small group, especially Lancaster City. I don't think it's reflective of our township per se. And I'm anxious to get it onto the agenda next month, and we can get a vote on this.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Since this has come up in new business, can we take public comment now on this item? Okay, anyone having a public comment on this issue right now, please step up. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Wendy Volopis, Hunter's Path. Been a resident for 35 years. Thank you very much for bringing up this topic because it's one of 2 topics I came to talk about tonight. You just saved me some time since I don't have a lot of time. And I will tell you that I know 2 Christian organizations that asked for story time and haven't been given it. So there's definitely, it's not right, okay? And I don't care what people do behind closed doors. I don't care who takes their kids to what, but a publicly funded building should be used for the general public, should be used for the community and not for small groups. So I came tonight to ask you not to fund the Lancaster City Library. Maybe there's a way, and I don't know how everything works, but maybe there's a way that when you fund conditionally. You know, that you'll fund the Mountville Library, or you'll only fund, and the funds can only be used for community, purposes that affect the entire community. Some way of just putting some framework around it to prevent, things like this from happening. For those of you who may not know, the man dressed like a woman with makeup who's going to be reading to the children publicly referred to children as snotty-nosed semen demon. Publicly. It's on a website, or it's on an Instagram post. When I called Lissa Holland, the library director, and pointed that out to her, she went silent for a minute, but then she jumped right in and said, well, he does an adult venue and a child venue. And I said, I'm sorry, Lisa, but somebody with that sentiment on children should not be in front of children. And I've written letters. I know a lot of people have written letters. We had a petition going that in 4 days, and I can give this to you, gentlemen, we had 2,293 signatures until change.org took it down and didn't tell us why they took it down. So I'm challenging that with them right now with their legal department because, I used my own personal network of 70 people that signed this petition, and they're all saying, what did we get up to? And I've got to tell them it was pulled down, and I can't even tell them why. That's just insanity. So, yeah, I thank you so much for recognizing the issue. And again, this is nothing about, how I feel about, people that identify as other things or have other interests. I don't care what people do in their private time. I care a lot about where my taxpayer money is going.
Thank you.
So, thanks. I'll come back whenever you have it on the agenda. And I still do have another topic that I do want to talk about.
We'll get you back up there. Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment on this?
Hi, my name's Kurt Humble. I've been a township president since 1978. And I'd just like to thank you also for bringing that to our attention. I'm definitely not in favor of what's happening at the library, but beyond that, paying taxes in East Hempfield since 1978, I'm just curious as to why the township donates money to Lancaster City Library. And especially when we have libraries at Mountville, which my wife uses, and I would just like to see us using those tax dollars, my tax dollars, locally rather than send them into the city.
Just one follow-up on that. We do have a significant number of people that live in East Hempfield that do utilize the Lancaster Library, who are card-carrying members. So the community does benefit from them, and we have and do recognize that they have played a positive role here. Let's just say most of the time. But we do just wanted to touch on that and bring that to your attention.
I can
That's
appreciate-
the reason why.
Okay, thanks. I can appreciate that, but I think there's a lot more residents in Mountville and some of the other areas maybe closer by. Just something to talk about at your meeting when it comes
Okay.
up.
We budgeted approximately $20,000 this year to the library. So it's a pretty substantial, and because of the size of our township and the level of commitment, it's a significant number in their fundraising that they do. Yep. Some would say. Okay, anything else? Sure.
I'm Marguerite Fritsch. I'm fairly new to this township.
Your address?
For living here almost 3 years. And my question was, for any of these kind of donations that go out of the township to other entities, is there any accountability back for what that money is spent for? To be able to share that with the citizens?
On an ongoing basis, we evaluate what we get for what we give, and we'll share that with you anytime you ask.
But to answer your question, yes, the library provides an annual report to us. Our fire departments provide annual reports to us. So every donation, there is accountability.
Thank you.
Could you
we have your
state your
address?
name
Ma'am-
again
Ma'am, we have your address.
and your name again for the minutes,
Marguerite
please?
Fritsch, 921 Snapper Dam Road.
Thank you.
Would you sign or have you?
It just helps us with meeting minutes.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, anyone who addresses the board this evening does need to sign in with your name and address for the minutes.
Okay, anything else on this topic? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the Traffic Commission report. We had a Traffic Commission meeting this evening. Discussed were the Farmingdale Road situation and continued evaluations that are happening there concerning truck traffic, signage, and driver compliance issues that we face. We're also working on a resolution to some issues that at least 3 at this point residents have with some of the turning issues associated with the new pork chop that we put in, but we're working on all of this. We also discussed truck signs on and speed signs on Stony Battery Road, and how we might implement some new signage on that road also to help with the speed and traffic control. Scott, anything else?
No. Did you get
No.
the brake retard?
Right, I didn't mention brake retarder, but I did remember the signs. So, yeah, that'll be in the written report for sure. Okay, next up. All right, generally, public comment for East Hempfield Township taxpayers. Anyone here for that this evening? Okay, Wendy. You want-
Again, Wendy Velopez, 900 Hunters Path. I'm here to ask the township to consider defunding anything that you give to Lancaster City. It seems that in the dark of the night, they decided to become a sanctuary city. And I just spent the last 2 days with the commissioners in meetings with the public, voicing concerns about the results of a sanctuary city. And part of the conversation, first of all, I have full compassion for the people that are in this country. Unfortunately, already we have too many homeless in downtown Lancaster. We can't even accommodate them. And so before we open up the floodgates, which is what will happen if they start busing people in, we need to have a plan, right? We need to have, how many people are coming? Are they children? Are they adult? What countries? How are we going to do language? What's the budget for this? How are we going to give them health care? When I ask those questions, none of that due diligence appears to have been done. When I asked the question of Alice Yoder, did anybody go visit another sanctuary city? Because some of them are waking up now and thinking it's not such a great idea, like Boston and New York City. She said, no, she wasn't aware that anybody did any best practice sharing, which is common in the business world, right? You don't just go off and do something without trying to leverage the benefit of your peer companies and, you know, what they found that was good and what they found that was bad. There are a lot of people here illegally now. I don't recommend having them go back. I think a lot of them came here, they're hardworking, they're contributing to society. Her whole point was there are people that are here that are afraid to ask for police support because they might be deported. I'm looking to stop the flow of people coming into the country illegally. The money that will be spent in supporting that would be much better spent fixing our immigration system so that people can come here legally, right? The way that my husband's grandfather did, the way that so many of our immigrants did. So my ask is, and I'm going to start a full-blown mission in this community to get everybody here to talk about it, is that we stop providing any funding to Lancaster City. On top of that, what was raised is Resolution 33. So both commissioners, DiAgostino and Parsons, raised it. It was passed today because it's 2-1, right? So it passed. And we have a lot of townships and municipalities declaring that they're not sanctuary. So effectively, they're going to surround the city with townships and municipalities that are clearly stating they're not a sanctuary city. For those who may not know, in addition to becoming a sanctuary city in the dark of the night, part of that was they're not going to cooperate with ICE. And so the commissioner's point was, nobody's following the law. I mean, you can't just, as a city, you can't just change the law, right? Nobody's following the Constitution. And so that's the basis of my ask is we must follow our Constitution, we must follow our laws, and let's help people come here legally and stop the flow of the illegals. Because let me tell you something, they're not going to stay in Lancaster City. And then it's going to affect all your budgets, right? When police, in services that I don't think you're prepared. I mean, how can you be prepared if they couldn't even tell me who's coming in, right? So it's gonna flow over. So let's get ahead of it and let's surround the city with townships and municipalities that aren't gonna do it.
Okay, that was Resolution 33
Resolution
by the
33.
county, by the county.
It was passed today in the commissioners meeting. 2-1.
We'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I would talk to either Parsons or DiAgostino.
Okay,
And I have a lot of stuff if you need it, but
we can, I'm sure we.
they're
can
your
get our
best
hands on it.
resources. They can tell you that the townships that have already done what I'm suggesting.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Anyone else?
We are Kurt and Jan Umbel. And I first of all want to thank all of you for serving. I'm sure it's a thankless job sometimes, but we do appreciate it. We've been in the township for 48 years. Anyway, I just have a request, and we have some neighbors with us. If anyone wants to comment, I hope they do that. but there's some strange curbing going on Snapper Dam Road where we live. There's engineering on one side, and I sent you all pictures, so I'm not sure if you got those
I did.
pictures.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think it'd be better if I just read this. I have a copy for everybody, but we just ask for your careful consideration for the one-lane bridge to be widened and incidental work done in that area following that widening on Snapper Dam Road. We understand we're on the schedule to be macadam this year, and it would be a good time to complete that widening, which was started years ago. In other developments in our township, those bridge areas have been widened. This project has been on the table several times and canceled. So please look at the subpar pipe. It's all rusted, and the ditch in the stream needs cleaned. Many times this area has had extensive flooding and the road's been closed until the water subsides. Many previous owners have moved from that property at 3752 Little Mac, and I did talk to Mr. Peebles. He said, widen the road. He said they speed up anytime they come over the bridge anyway. So they have removed fences to allow water to flow during the heavy rains. Upon repair, a larger drainage area could solve the present problem. We feel this is a real eyesore and a detriment to our community. If traffic or speed is an issue, how about widening or installing a larger pipe, clean the stream and ditches, put a speed bump in? We have a home in Delaware. Many developments there have speed bumps. Also, another idea is radar at the corner, or I know in the past you've put a lighted speed sign, which seems to slow people down. Does anybody else have any comments?
Thank you.
I'd just say along with that, familiar with Snapper Dam Road and the bridge she's talking about there. Okay, the property, and we are neighbors and all together there along Snapper Dam Road. There's a drainage ditch that comes down through there, okay? When we moved in there in 1978, that was just, it was graded and it was just a little bit of, you know, a little swale, if you will. That has continued to get deeper and deeper. So it's now probably 4 to 5 foot deep. So the water comes down through there. And, you know, we get the water from West Hempfield too, coming across from the old Charlie Chip plant, coming across that way. So that ditch has continued to get deeper. The water comes down. And now down there before it gets to the bridge, there's a lot of debris piles up. So the stream needs cleaned out. And it would be nice now, right at the bridge behind Mr. Eberly's, at the bridge on Stony Battery, there was riprap put in partway down, but it stopped. And so it just continuing to get deeper in the road. And there is a big sewer main going up through there. So I don't know if it's going to start to disturb that at some time also. But the sewer trunk comes up through our yard. The property, the ditch is actually not on our property. And so I think most of us maintain the edge of it and weed eat the edge of the stream. I even do the other side, which is the sports complex. So it's not, that ditch is really not on our property. It would be on the Racket Club or East Hempfield.
Okay.
So just something that we would like you to take a look at, maybe consider.
Question and a comment.
Yep.
The question is there anything going on there that's detrimental to your property now? To your property?
To my property?
Right.
No, not where
Okay.
we're at. Down below, it probably becomes more of a flood issue because it comes off of the Racket Club drive parking out a lot. There's a lot of water converges down at that area. It's just that, well, if it's cleaned out, but it's just going to continue when it gets cleaned out. I think it'd just make it a little bit deeper. So I'm not sure
We're,
how it'll be resolved.
I'm not our stormwater guy on the board. Mr.
Right.
Johnson's our expert these
Right.
days. But that whole area, you understand there's a stormwater issue in that whole area. And we're looking at trying to address all of what's going on there.
Yeah.
In one process. And it's going to take time and it's going to take a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, we are in the process of evaluating that. just in the beginning. You know, we appreciate you taking the time to, you know, particularly as it pertains to the bridge. But again, that would all be part of the stormwater resolution when we get to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the macadam part, I mean, when y'all did on the other side of the bridge, it got done to the bridge and then it stopped. Are we on the agenda for going up to Stony Battery?
Well, I can't say sitting here,
Okay.
but we can get you an answer.
All right,
All right, we'll get you an answer on
all
that.
right. I
Okay.
don't know if it's ever been done since 78. Maybe it has, but it was nice having the other part done down to the bridge, but it'd be nice to have it done from there to Stony
All right.
Battery.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for your time.
You bet.
That bridge is crazy ugly.
Sounds like it. Anyone else for public comment tonight? Dr. Hughes.
Back. David Hughes, 854 Huntington Place. I noticed that on the internet, the township has announced that yard waste is being collected on April 9th. That's also the signal for people to get out and look at the yard waste. When they go, geez, 50 cents a bag, go to Lowe's and fill these things up, and I'm probably have 400 bags. I'm just going to burn it. The township has a specific thing that there is no burning of yard waste. None. But it also says that 2 people have to complain about it. Now, why do we worry about yard waste and its burn? Because yard waste produces significant particulate pollution. Now, some of you may or may not know that Lancaster ranks in the top 10 of particulate pollution in the air in the country. So what's that a big deal about? Well, they've also done studies in the scientific world that shows that there's certain inflammatory diseases. They've only limited it to 2 so far because it's not really exciting to do these types of studies in the scientific world. But 2, rheumatoid arthritis and irritable bowel syndrome, what most of us get every now and then. But the true irritable bowel syndromes are both inflammatory autoimmune diseases, and their incidence is directly related to the amount of particulate pollution in the air. There shouldn't be 2 people complaining of their neighbor burning when it's in the ordinance that says it shouldn't be done. You should be able to call up and say, my neighbor is burning yard waste. He should be fined. And it should be a good fine. Why have all of a sudden young people in ages 30 and 40 coming down with cancer? One of these days, they're going to finally say, you know, folks, it's pollution. Everybody thought antibiotics would end our problems in the world. 1940, Fleming. What happened then? The work in inflammation came to a halt. What do you think? How do you think COVID killed so many people? The inflammatory response of the body was so massive that people drowned in their own hyaluronic acid, the stuff you put on your face to make it plump and look good. That caused them to drown. How can we sit here and say, we're here for the taxpayers? And one of the more frightening things, our state legislature has this big push on to allow burns in public lands. And they have this great idea that if private citizens took a course, they could do it on their own property and wouldn't be legally responsible. And that's an outrage.
But there's not much we can do about that on a state level. The state,
You can object to it.
well, we can, but we're really just trying to take care of this little space here called East Hempfield Township.
And if you objected to that and enough people objected to it, that would never be passed, and you would have done something to protect them.
That may well be true. But when we get down to the local level, the way things work here, we have problems and we try to help residents resolve them. Your issue with at least I think the issue is with the two-person before you can complain.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, backing up one step, we think it's a resident's responsibility if he has a neighbor that's burning, whether he knows he's allowed to do it or not, you go talk to the guy and you try to resolve the situation. That's the first step. And then if you do need a second person, I'm sure you've got plenty of friends over there. You and your friend, you come to the township and then we'll get involved. We have a process for all of this.
The process is incorrect. You're allowing pollution to occur.
The
It's
process,
stated very clearly that if you do this, doesn't matter who rats you out, you're going to get a fine. It's time we take these things serious.
and we try.
No, you're not.
Well,
I'm sorry, you're not.
okay, we can agree to disagree. We're up here doing the best we can in all of this, whether it's burning, jack
Are you a
breaks.
science denier? Are you? I asked you.
Mr. Chairman, we give 3 minutes. I'm just
I
gonna
know,
ask that we enforce
Yeah,
that.
we got,
Inflammatory disease, does she have Hashimoto's?
if, first of all, we appreciate you coming here and commenting on the situation. But we've got to move on. And if you want to bring something else to our attention about what you're talking about, if you wouldn't mind, just put it in writing and we'll try to get you to where you are in a better place. But there's only so much we can do. And most of the time it's very, very basic. And we're not,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Anyone else? Almost got you. You were thinking about it. Okay. Enough of public comment tonight. Mrs. Weitzer, manager's report.
I lost it.
Oh, there is one more, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
I live on Snapper Dam, 921. My name is Kevin. Getting back to the drainage behind our properties, okay? Over behind Kurt's house, it's more wide open, and same with Dave's, but when you get down to my corner, before it starts to turn, and we're right behind the rec center, it gets shallow. So a lot of that rainwater backs up behind my property. It floods up into my yard. It doesn't crest over because there's a little bit of a rise, but it does stop there. And when the water levels start to go down, it'll pool there. So when you're looking at stagnant water, potential for breeding of mosquitoes and stuff like that, that's behind my house. So if you're going to be working in that area and you're considering, opening it up, I can point out where it could be cleaned out, and that water will flow into the regular stream down to the farm.
All right.
It would eliminate the stagnant water backing up. That's something I'd like to point out.
Thank you. Make sure, yeah, if you're going to do some work for us, we need your name and address.
If all you Snapper Dam people can stay here for a moment afterwards, as a resident of Lambley Road, I'd like to talk to you for a moment.
Now, Mrs. Weitzer.
So Centerville Road is moving along as we anticipated. They're actually gaining some days, as I understand. They were back 48 days and they're capturing those days. So they're still projecting a finish date of September of 2025. The Church Street project is partially underway. That is a resurfacing of Church Street by PennDOT, and they are also putting in curb and sidewalk. We are having a discussion with them regarding the width of the roadway, and hopefully we'll get some resolution to that before the next meeting. The Old Roystown Road Bridge is on hold until we are allowed back into the stream on June 1st. We discussed the Farmingdale Road project, I think, pretty extensively during Traffic Commission tonight, so I won't go into anything further. The Stony Battery Trail, we are waiting for clear weather. We've had that. I think it's on Perry's schedule. It's just a matter of getting it done and get the pavers in there to resurface that at the proper time. The truck study signage that was discussed at Traffic Commission, and I'll bring it up now. Perry plans on having the signage up on Stony Battery, Stony Battery and Centerville, probably by April 1st. So it's in process. The Jacobs Creek equipment that is being replaced is scheduled to arrive July 29th. We are moving through the process of switching our software program from Financial Edge to Cassell. It's a process. They're getting hopefully to the end of it. We think we see the light at the end of the tunnel on that one. The 283 Commerce Hub, you had acted on those agreements this evening. Won't go any further. I will point out that the zoning hearing board meeting for the Colebrook Validity Challenge is scheduled for tomorrow night, March 21st here at the township. That's all I have in my report, unless you have something no, there is another page. I'll be darned. The stormwater projects that we have going on, the Gloucester Basin, that's been submitted to National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for a grant. That is the secondary basin. That is, Nisley is the main basin, and then the one kind of tucked in with the 4 acres off of Gloucester is the smaller one.
Switzer, could you go, since the Nisley Basin affects everybody there, could you go in a little more detail what we're doing on
I
our
can
golf
explain
course?
the whole thing. So we have the Gloucester Basin, we have the Nisley Basin, and we also have the golf course park project. So as I said, the Nisley Basin is off of Nisley Road, off of the golf course, and where the caretaker's building used to be. That will eventually be a large basin that's going to capture a lot of water. In conjunction with that will be also the Gloucester Basin, which is smaller, tucked in closer to Gloucester Road. Following that up, we also are doing the project on the golf course, following that stream down through and doing some meadow work, taking care of some of the embankments on the golf course. And then we are going over across the way to the Hark property, which the township owns, and going down the unnamed tributary that borders that and then ends up at Snapper Dam. So the area that's closest to Snapper Dam behind your home, we will be reaching out to the residents when we're finished with the design work, is to consolidate that and improve it, create some pockets of wetlands and retention areas. So that we're going to try to slow that water down, and then it's going to continue its way down through the Snapper Dam area there. We have a grant for that. We typically do projects when we have grant funding. So we do have a grant for that. We do have a grant for the basins. So we are now going through a phase 1 archaeological assessment, which is required under the grant project. So it's going to kind of take us a little bit of time to get that accomplished. But once that's done, we'll start moving along and getting that work completed.
This project started with Tropical Storm Lee. So if you guys remember Darrell Street in particular, and actually Lambley actually had flooding low on what occurred by the farm on Snapper Dam. This was the highest flood area in the township. And so we have designated flood projects, and now they're starting to come to fruition after all these years. So we have not forgotten Tropical Storm Lee, especially with me being a resident there, as well as Mr. Wigglesworth on the other side of the table. Here's also a resident of Mill Creek too.
So Dorsier Drive stormwater pipe is also another project that is not does not have funding, but it is a smaller project. We have met with the residents in the area. They have voiced their concerns and their preferences. That will be on your agenda for April 3rd. They'll probably be attending. They are probably they are asking us to look at option B, which is option A, which is the pipe. It's a little bit more dollars, but they would prefer that that's the way we go. And we'll have more information on that. DMA is looking at that a little bit more closely, making sure everything lines up, and then we'll present that to you at your April 3rd meeting. So that's progressing along as well. That's all I got in my report unless there have questions.
Speaking of grants, any smoke signals on some of the
No.
other grants that we're waiting for?
I believe the meetings are scheduled for last week in March,
Awesome.
so we
Okay.
should hear something.
Route 72,
Yes,
Bocce.
yes.
Awesome. Okay, great.
One has to come before the other.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Okay, anything else from the board? Anything else from the audience tonight? All right, but yes, that's correct. We had an executive session tonight to discuss a legal matter at 6:20 and ended at 6:55. So with that, we'll adjourn this meeting at this time. Thank you.
Sure.